Welcome back to part 2 of the Sawtooth episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. We just picked up my buddy Scott Pilon from Pappy and Harriet's, and now we're arriving at the site to go walk through our entrapment. Stay tuned as we return to Sawtooth for the 13-year anniversary of my cruise entrapment.
It's crazy just being up here. I mean, you still look around you and you say, how is that gonna burn?
That was always the hardest part. Like after class, I would have people ask, like, would you do anything differently? And I said, that's the hardest part. We came back up for the 1-year anniversary, and it already had started to regrow. And I said, you know, the sad thing is I would do it again, but your situation awareness has to catch up to what's really going on with the fire behavior. And I think that was the hardest part, because we were here at the structure before. We had left to go somewhere else to do some other firefighting. And then when we came back, the fire had drastically changed. We were going to get a flank, and then all of a sudden we're going to get the head of this. And I just don't think our situational awareness was catching up.
No, because we were coming back from essentially trying to rescue him, cut off by the fire, and then came back because of the wind changing the direction. And then we, like you said, we got the head of the fire.
Right. John, you can come up and moderate. That's what you're here for now.
I'm moderating?
Yes, you're moderating, asking questions and stuff.
You mean like a game show host?
Yeah, that's you now.
Okay.
So I remember you pulled up. I really do not think this driveway was here like this.
Yeah, I don't think the gate was here, because I ended up backing in here, and then we were, I mean, not too far. I mean, I think the bumper was like right here, and we stretched the line down the driveway to the edge of the house. And I remember this was priority number 1 for us, and then that one we pretty much just figured that it was going to protect itself. You know, pretty good Adobe type. And so we were going to let that one defend itself. We took care of the propane tank. This one was all electric. There wasn't any propane here. So we just shut that one off, and then we started setting up for structure defense. And as we pulled up here, the homeowner was on site up on top of the garage, like on that sun deck.
I remember them.
And he had like a classic or like a sports car in the driveway. And one of the things we always talk about in classes, you know, he walks us through his house, shows us pictures of his family. And when he's leaving, it's like, you know, hey, take whatever you want in the fridge, use the restroom, whatever, but you're going to save my house, right? And I always tell these firefighters that you got to think about that in your mentality, because we get in that mindset as, yes, we're going to save your house. We're going to get a flank of this thing. It's going to kind of wrap around. And when things don't go right, you know, you'd be on those fires for years and years and years where nothing went wrong. And you get that complacency, like, oh yeah, we're fine, your house is going to be fine, and then, you know, all of a sudden now we're trapped in his garage, you know. And you weren't here for the annual anniversary last year.
No.
Or was that 2 years ago, John, when you were?
When we came, I think that was like 4 years ago.
So we had Dave Bond meet us here, the owner of the house, meet us here. He had had a stroke a couple of months prior, but he was able to get out of the car and thank us again for, you know, and really thanking us and saying sorry for, I can't believe you guys almost lost your life trying to protect my house, you know. And I think that a lot of firefighters, we get this mentality that, you know, we're going to risk our lives to save the property. We know that there's nobody inside that house. And I always tell firefighters, if you had to do, like if you had somebody with a sprained ankle, you go out there, they don't want any medical treatment, you have to get them to sign AMA, right, against medical advice. Well, what if we literally had a form like that on like a thing like today, you know, and it's like, okay, so nobody's in the house, right? I need you to initial here that says nobody's in the house. And then after that, I need you to initial that you understand that we're going to try to save your stuff, and we could get injured or we could possibly get killed. Are you okay with that? And how many civilians or the customers that we're dealing with, how far down would they sign? Oh, and if I do get killed on this, just so you understand, there'd be a memorial in your front yard, and every year on the anniversary, like we're doing today, we're going to come visit.
Right.
You know, I just don't think that you would get the same response. We always say that, well, the American public expects us to risk our life to save their stuff, and I think that's true to a certain extent. But you know, today with the way we're doing triage for these homes in the wildland environment, you're better off doing fire front following. We know that's the embers that get most of these homes, and then foam and go and things like that. It's completely changed the mentality, and unfortunately, 13 years ago, temporary refuge areas and those things we're talking about didn't exist back then.
Yeah, they didn't.
Wow.
Well, it's just weird being back here. I mean, all that's left is just 2 slabs.
Well, and that brings up that same point, right? If we would have died in here, I mean, he didn't even rebuild this house. It's 13 years later.
No.
We could have died for this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you guys were just operating off a tank, right? That's all you had?
That's all we had.
There's
there's a hydrant
right
here in front of the house, but we were just operating off the tank.
Go up to Esperanza, and that's another scary thought. Like literally, if this mountain range wasn't here, you could see Esperanza from here. I mean, as a crow flies, it's not that far over in Cabazon. Yeah. And they haven't rebuilt that house, you know, where those 5 guys died. And that was the same year. It was 2006.
Yep.
Our entrapment was in July, and that one occurred in October.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't bring it home any more than that just to think about, well, what are we trying to save?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Well, it fluctuates though, right? So Esperanza happened. A buddy of mine was running a mid-slope fire in Elsinore. Right in the freshness of those 5 fatalities, they're going, please don't go down our street. Our houses aren't defensible space. Don't risk your life to save our house. They're like pleading with them. Now, fast forward to last winter, or Woolsey fire.
Right.
And you a-holes, where the heck were you?
Yeah.
And so it's a pendulum.
Well, and you talk about defensible space. Here when we pulled up, we measured after the fire from the end of the house to where the brush actually started past the fence line. It was at least 50, it was like 53 feet from the back of the house to the fence line where the brush was. And I thought that was, oh, that's pretty good clearance. And I've come to just the terms of, if you don't have your 100 feet of clearance, your emergency, you know, if you don't do your preparation, it's not my emergency. And that 100 feet of clearance, they've done the studies on it, the radiant heat studies and all that. That 100 feet is in there for a reason. We just think it's just a number that, well, that was the easiest number for them to come up with. But that 100 feet, if they don't have that clearance, don't put your eggs in that basket. You know, it's pretty tough. John, so we'll walk up here to where the garage is and kind of talk about this.
Okay.
Any questions you have?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what kind of flame lengths were you looking at when you said it switched its energy level?
You know, when we first got here, and it's kind of cool to look out here because it was hard to see originally. The fire was kind of coming across, the wind was pushing it because there was a thunderstorm in Big Bear, and the fire is actually sweeping across the valley floor right there. You can kind of see it in the distance. It was actually pushing across there, and we didn't think it was going to get here at all because it was going the opposite
channeling
direction.
over there, huh?
And just the wind was pushing across, just like it's windy today, like just in that same direction.
Yep.
It's pushing across here, and we're like, it's gonna have to come over these rock outcroppings and come through here. There's no way. And we're just gonna get a flank if we do anything. Well, all of that flank of fire, the wind pushed it all the way across the entire valley floor. The thunder cell built up over Big Bear. And then when that happened, that whole flank of fire rotated 90 degrees and became the head and just laterally spread through Pioneertown, all in a same, just a congregation flank, all in unison, all at once across here. And it came up over this ridge, and there's a valley that comes down right here. And I know that when we pulled up the second time to protect this house, after we had left and come back, the fire was coming right up this and running up here. And by the time we pulled a nozzle here, the fire was at this back fence and rolling over Scott's head.
So yeah, I pulled the nozzle on the other side of the house, and I do remember getting to the end of my line and just calling for water and looking back, and you know, you were doing your thing, and I turn around and all I see is fire just moving in a wall. I mean, that's literally how I can only describe it, as a wall.
Right. And
waiting for it to come so that I could push it around the house, but I never got water.
Yeah.
And we know what happened there, you know. And finally, when you said, hey, we need to get back, is when we dropped the nozzle and ran back to the engine.
Well, so this was, the garage is here behind me, and then this was the house, and there was this breezeway that went in between the house and the garage, and it had like this decking over the top that you could go on top of the garage, like a sun deck. So when we first got here, the owner was up on top of the garage looking at the fire out in front of us. And when we got trapped in this garage, I mean, Scott, we were probably right up here by the door inside this garage, and we could tell that the fire had come through this breezeway and was wrapping around this front door where the man door was, and the garage door was here. And this is where we ended up hunkering down until we could get out. We climbed out a window through there to get out. But you know, to answer John's questions, what do you think the flame lengths were?
So if I had to guess, at the end of the nozzle to there was what we said 53 feet. Flames were over my head when they hit the edge of the clearance.
Right.
So it's got to be 60 plus 70 foot flame lengths.
And you're saying it was, even though you had 53 feet of clearance, it was going over your head, just seeking its next victim over here?
Yep,
Yeah.
the wind was pushing the flame down to the ground because it was so violent that it just rolled over my head.
Well, and when the after action review came out, the 72-hour report came out, the fire behavior analyst estimated the fire spread at 300 feet per second during our burnover rate. I mean,
300 feet per second.
yeah,
Wow.
and I'm just, that's not even possible.
No.
But that's what the F-band came up with, you know?
Wow.
But you
Well,
can see it.
although there's a little spalling, I did want to compliment you for saving the slab.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I teach slap savers all the time, so
There you go.
it's not that I don't do it, right? But, yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it goes back to what Scott's talking about, where it's like, well, we didn't get water, and a lot of what I teach today is human factors and true resource management, and where it all comes from. And this is this fire right here. I was on an engine that I was unfamiliar with. I was playing captain here, so I was being the captain and the engineer at the same time due to a staffing problem, and truthfully, being on an engine I didn't know, I was standing out at the pump panel looking for the throttle, and it wasn't where I thought the throttle was going to be based on that type of engine, an old 1980 American LaFrance, looking for a cable throttle down here somewhere, and it just didn't work out. And so at that point I called down to Scott and Chris, that were down on the nozzle, and I said, let's go, we're out of here. I couldn't get them water. And the human factors continued to propel what happened at that point, because at that time we all loaded up on the engine, we're getting ready to get out of here. I go to the rear of the engine, I'm trying to disconnect the hose line from the gated Y, and it just seems like the threads are like 2 feet long. I'm threading it and I'm threading it, and finally the fire started to lay over, and the brands and the embers are coming everywhere. And so I said, let's go, and I'm just gonna drag the hose line down the dirt road behind us. As we climb in the engine, we're getting ready to go, the engine stalls. And I always tell this in my class, it wasn't due to a lack of oxygen. It was because when we're getting ready to get out of here, I reach over between the captain's seat and the engineer's seat to take it out of pump, and instead of pulling the PTO, I pulled the engine kill switch on an old diesel motor.
You were in a borrowed vehicle that you got that day?
Yeah, we literally just borrowed it from another fire department because we were out of rigs for our fire department due to whatever. So
wow.
Yeah.
So the Swiss cheese thing was not only in alignment, but it was melting.
You could probably say that for sure.
Yeah.
What else can we say about the garage? I mean, if I was down here with Chris,
right?
Carissa was somewhere next to me in the smoke, because by that time the level of smoke had already dropped to at least my height. The window that we crawled out was over there.
Well, when we first got in here, I remember talking to the strike team leader on the radio and letting him know that we had taken shelter in the garage.
Yep.
And there was some confusion on which house we were in. We had bounced around a couple of times that day. And I couldn't remember the street name. I couldn't remember the address. We're out of our own backyard. And I remember it was kind of getting punchy back and forth on the radio between me and the strike team leader. And I told him, you know what, we're in good shape. We're just gonna wait for the fire front to bump us. I'll keep you posted how we're doing. And almost instantly after I told him we were in good shape, the back window of the garage breaks out.
Yep.
The wind comes in, starts throwing embers in here, and there's and Dave was a Western memorabilia collector, so the garage was full of all kinds of fun stuff. You know, some of the stuff you still see on the ground that he had left behind, little horseshoes. But once that started occurring, I mean, we instantly went from being in good shape to bad shape.
Yeah.
And and started changing our mindset on, okay, now what?
That's when you said, hey, we need to find a way out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, that was literally what you said. Hey guys, we need to find a way out of here. And we began rummaging through all of the material that he had in this garage. And I remember climbing over and getting to the window.
Right.
And seeing through the window that it was pretty much burned out. It was black.
Right.
And that's when I called back and says, hey, there's a window, follow my voice. And you found me. I'm pretty sure I picked you guys up and put you out the window.
Yeah, we call it the big Denver drill. You know, and instead of breaking that 4-foot pane of glass, we slid the 2-foot slider window open, and we're all trying to crawl out that hole. I call it the Denver drill today with us doing that. And I remember you threw me out on top of my head to get out. And I would love to say as a good captain I was the last one out, but I was number 3. You were behind me. But before we got to that window, you know, there was a time that we were hunkered down right here, and we were still waiting for the fire front to pass.
Yeah.
And you remember this like you know, plain as day.
Yep.
Carissa, the rookie of the crew, looks up and she goes, Cap, we're gonna die. And I didn't think we were gonna die, but I literally told her, and you heard it, you know, no, but this is gonna hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were gonna die in there, but I didn't think we were getting out of here without getting burned.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And even in the class today, you were talking about, no, I thought we were going to die. And that, I don't know if I was there, but I mean, obviously what was going on.
Well, what was going through my mind was, you know, after, I think my thoughts started racing after Chris has said that and after your response. Right. But I was definitely thinking.
You're a jerk. That's what you're thinking.
No, I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, like, man, is this really how it's going to end? And I don't know, when you said, hey, we need to find a way out of here, that was like re-energizing, remotivating.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're going to get out of here. And we did.
It's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah. Like I said, man, it's good to see you 13 years later.
It's so good to see you 13 years later.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Well, yeah, I don't know how long I like to sit here, but you know, we can go get ice cream and
let's
finish
go get
up
some
this
ice cream.
Conversation.
It's hot out here.
Say goodbye to the return of Sawtooth for the 13-year anniversary.
Yeah.
But
you ever find out what the owner did, or is he still alive? Or
yeah, well, like I said, the last time I saw him was 4 years ago when we saw you, but haven't seen him since then. And I know he owns several properties, but this was always going to be his retirement home, with like I said, all the Western collectibles. Yeah, this place was covered. There was covered wagons, and you remember when we pulled up and like the front porch of the garage, it was like all this old like wood awning over the top of it, and there, like a wood deck porch.
There was a wood deck, and I remember seeing that catch fire when we were inside the garage.
Right.
You could see the flames just lick across the bottom of the openings of the doors. And Chris even a couple times opened the door and fire came in. We're like, well, we're going to keep that shut. Bad idea.
Well, and always the best story of the Sawtooth fire was out on that front porch originally, radio out there.
Yeah.
You know, playing music.
Playing music.
And it's playing country music. And I know that there was a portion in time where it went through my head is, you know, the radio's out there playing country music, and I'm like, you can't let me die to country music. That is messed up, you know. And then even worse than that, the next step is we listened to the radio melt out on the front porch until it would no longer play music.
Right.
And that was pretty eerie to just hear that go down. You know?
Yeah.
Did you guys have anything for airway, like your hood or a bandana?
I mean, we had our shrouds.
I had my shroud on across my face, but that was
so you didn't
about
get too much respiratory?
Nope.
No, and there was a couple of other firefighters that did. When we went back to the volunteer fire station, there was a couple of them dealing with smoke inhalation, but I mean, and that's because they stayed outside. Because we got stuck in the garage, I think that was part of why we didn't have those.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pretty crazy just to see the regrowth. Remember when we came back here for the 1st-year anniversary? Like
all the trees
were
literally blown this direction.
Yeah, freeze lines in them where they had burned up.
Yep.
And then there was the tree right here where we took the picture where it was just like this little sproutling starting to grow back.
Yeah.
I think it was like right in one of these trees right here, but it like
might
all
have
the stuff
been that
gone.
one over there.
Yeah. I mean, it was moonscape. The nozzle that was at the end of the driveway from the nozzle, probably a good 50 or 60 feet back, it was just a line of ash going back to the engine.
Well, remember, I still have that 5-foot section of hose that
Well,
was
that's
left.
just because as the captain, I got to keep the nozzle, you got to keep
That's
the
fine.
hose.
That's fine. It's a great memory.
If I only would have pushed hard enough, I would have kept the fire engine. County didn't need that thing back. I should have kept the fire
Your
engine.
hose burned up?
Oh yeah. A good 50 feet back, the hose was all burned up and gone. And we melted a couple marker lights on the engine, some pump panel lights.
Bubbled some paint.
Yeah. But the best part is we were borrowing it from the county and we just handed it back. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
You know, but it definitely sucked for them.
Did they get any reserve beef up programs going after that? Like, is there rigs people can just jump into now?
You know, in a normal setting at 29 Palms, we had a reserve engine at each station, and it was just one of those bad timings where both of our frontline engines were out. They're putting a strike team together on paper, and it was like, well, we'll borrow an engine from another fire department. And you know, like you said, you talk about the Swiss cheese. You can't make any bigger holes in Swiss cheese than that to line up. Well, there you go. See, you live in Washington, so you don't get to see this anymore, but
No.
you know, coming
It's
back
pretty cool.
every once in a while just to see this place. And then bringing your new wife up here to see the site. I mean, it's always pretty humbling.
It's been pretty emotional for her nonetheless.
My wife refuses to come up here. She won't see the class. Wow. She won't come up to the site. I mean, we were probably in a little different time in our life than you were at that time. Riley was 9 or 10 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a different type of thing for her. I wish we would have done more for her, critical incident stress debriefing wise and things like that. But ready to go get some ice cream?
Ready? Let's go.
I like ice cream.
So do I. Got your favorite?
I got a bad knee. Do you mind taking middle again?
No, not at all.
Okay.